On November 19th, Ryerson will be hosting a night of laughs with Arab-issh, banned in America stand-up comedy show. There will be a great lineup of comedians from the US and Canada performing live. Dave Merheje, one of the leading acts, is here with us today. Dave Merheje was born in Windsor, Ontario. He found a love for comedy at a young age and started performing in Detroit. He produced his own series of comedy shows called We Ain't Terrorists Comedy Tour. He's also performed all over Canada and the US, including all the top clubs in New York and LA. Hi, Dave.
How's it going, man?
How are you?
Pretty good.
So what would you say was your inspiration to become a comedian?
Watching like talk shows at night, like Leno, Letterman, I think when I was like 10 years old. And then my uncle started showing me videos of like Richard Pryor and Andrew Dice Clay and Eddie Murphy around the age of like 15. And that's when I wanted to do stand-up around that age, 15 or 16.
And like, what was it like for your parents, considering our parents want doctors or engineers or?
My mom doesn't care. My mom would always tell me, she's like, as long as you're not broke. So she's like, as long as you're not homeless. She's like, I don't really care what you do. If you like it, if you love it, just do it. And my dad, I think my dad he would just tell me, he's like, as long as you put me in your act. Like, he didn't care. It was like, for him, it was like more he was showing off. Like, my son does this. So they were very, very supportive, which is weird for that, because the Middle Eastern families sometimes don't want you to do something. They look at it as childish, like it's just a dream kind of thing, so they want you to make money.
And how did you go about your dream?
When I started, there was only like one club in Windsor, so I'd go down to the Yuck Yucks, and then we'd do a show on Sundays, and then after a while, I started, because I lived on the border, so I would just go over to Detroit, and then every night try to get on stage.
Can you tell us a little bit about the show that's coming up next week?
That's Khaled is from Chicago. We were both at the Arab Comedy Festival in New York. I think it's their 8th year. So he was telling me about this idea about he was like, I want to do a Middle Eastern show where, we're not talking about Middle Eastern things. We can talk about whatever we want, and it's to a younger crowd, because like most of the guys are a little bit older and it's like family oriented. And I just didn't want to do like an hour about my father has an accent and stuff like that. So we wanted to talk about different things that everybody could relate to, right? So that's where he spawned that idea and then brought it to Toronto.
So you feel like you exhausted the We Ain't Terrorists comedy line?
No, you know what? It was his idea. What I was trying to do with We Ain't Terrorists was just show people that you don't have to, I don't have to come up and talk about being Middle Eastern for 2 hours. I could talk about whatever I want. I could talk about drugs. I could talk about relationships, just anything that goes on, right? That's what the concept of We Ain't Terrorists was. So when he told me about Arab-issh, it made sense, because I was like, oh, that's a better name. And it's just, he had the concept that I envisioned all along. So it was kind of like weird that we met kind of thing. He called me out of the blue when I was in Montreal, and he's like, I'm coming to Toronto thing. So it was like kind of cool that he had that idea.
And you define Arab-issh as like this hybrid in-between kind of thing, identity. So what was it like for you growing up with this kind of hybrid identity?
And it's, because you'll get a lot of times where people are like, you're not Arab. I remember this girl in high school was just like, she's like, you don't remind me of Arabic people. I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, well, they're usually aggressive with women. I was like, I thought she was saying, I was like, is it like, because I don't hate, like, because I haven't hit you? I was like, what Middle Eastern people, are just beating women? So it's just weird. You get that you don't look like, I'd get a piercing or I dyed my hair blonde, and then like people like, Arabic people like, what are you doing kind of thing. It's just adapting. 'Cause I was born in Canada, so that's my, you know what I mean? And I just have a Lebanese background, so it's just that kind of finding your own identity, and you don't have to be the mold that they want you to be.
But would you say your sense of humor is Arabic in a sense, or?
The aggression, I guess, because I don't know, like the Arabic people are I find that, you know what I mean? They just spill it out kind of thing. That's where I guess the only thing I could say it is, right? That if it's, I don't know, yeah.
And like, what do you try to convey through your work or comedy? What's the message?
Well, just to say what you want anytime, right? And don't hold back kind of thing. Like if you're on stage, just be honest as much as you can, not like fluffy. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I went to the, like, just speak your opinion. You should be able to if you have a mic in front of you.
So you don't believe in political correctness? Like there's nothing where, no limit where you can stop, kind of?
No, I don't believe in that at all. Cause it's not that I don't believe in it, it's just like, why you gotta be that sensitive? That you should be able to talk about every topic and explore it. Like, what are you just gonna hide from it for the rest of your life and just, you know what I mean? just say it. We're all grown people. We're all adults, man. So we should be able to talk it out instead of denying it or just brushing it away.
And your show is labeled as banned in America. So do you think it should be banned in America, or?
I don't know. I hope it doesn't get banned in America because there's a lot of money to be made in America. So I don't know what kind of, I guess it's just because, like Americans in the Middle East and stuff, they've had that history. So I guess that's where they would, you know what I mean? Like having tours like that. Because I remember when I got pushed off a show, is because I remember right after 9/11, the promoter called me. He's like, look, man, I can't have you on the show. I go, why? He's like, well, the white people there, they'll be weirded out. And it turned out that the owner was Middle Eastern of the club. So he was like, nah. So he was even like, you can't do it, dude. So it was like, that's how, at the time, was very intense, though, that your own people were kind of hesitant to take a risk on you.
And like you tour from one city to another kind of thing. You're always in Montreal, Toronto, Chicago, or what city do you think has the best crowd?
It's not. Sometimes it's weird. There's all like I was in Saskatoon and I thought that was the best crowd. So it just varies, right? Like sometimes it just depends. Some places don't get a lot of comedy, so when they're at a comedy show, like in Regina or Saskatoon, they're not always seeing comedy. So when you get there, they're so amped, more than a crowd I think in Toronto is, because they have so much stuff to do. So I think that plays a role into a little bit.
And do you think the sentiments towards Arabs change from city to city?
Some people don't, because I don't really talk about being Middle Eastern that much. It's maybe like 3 minutes. So like maybe to them, and I don't really look, you know what I mean? So they maybe not as much as in their face when I do it, but like I don't know how would they feel if like a comedian went up that just did 45 minutes. But like people have like racist thoughts and stuff like that, so you'll run into that. You're pretty safe when you're doing stand-up, I guess.
And where do you want to go with your comedy? Like, what's your ultimate dream with all of this?
Maybe just, I guess, it's like the same kind of not the same for every comedian, but like maybe just have a hour special in the States and then just get involved with movies and projects that you enjoy doing, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, just to sustain a proper future for yourself kind of thing.
And what advice would you give to aspiring comedians out there?
Advice, like just don't take advice that seriously. That's a problem. I think a lot of performers, when they get into it, they just start hearing people's thoughts and stuff like that, and it just messes with them. Just trust yourself, and if someone gives you advice, just look at it and be like, okay, this works for me, or it doesn't, and then scrap it away. But like, don't take advice to heart, man, because that could kind of ruin it. Just have fun with it.
And what would you like to say to Ryerson students about next week's show?
You should come in. We did this show in Chicago, and it was a great time, man. It was like Khaled, Mona, Keith Pedro was a local guy from here, and Mo. They're all very, very talented people, and they're very, very funny. And it's well organized. It's going to be a great time. I guarantee that.
Thanks for being with us, Dave.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks.